Thank you for listening to the Business and Beyond podcast.
We appreciate all of our listeners. If this is your first time listening to the Business and Beyond podcast, we hope you enjoy this episode. Episode 47 of the Business and Beyond podcast is brought to you by Apogee Graphics. You can see right here, we have the pyramid of Apogee Graphics hats. Our sponsor, you can go to their website and buy either one of these hats, all three of these. They also have a Christmas sale going on with Christmas signs. But signs, banners, anything you need graphics-wise, you go to their website, apogeegraphics.com. It's spelt a little differently, so just go down to the description box. There's a link there to their website.
Appreciate that. If anyone that didn't know, Apogee Graphics is my company. So if we don't plug it enough.
Yeah, he starts texting and calling me because I have another podcast I do, and he says, "Hey, no, you said this wrong, or you did it." He's very hard to please.
Well, having these items in this week, and we talked about it, and earlier in the week we were talking to something I thought would be good for us to chat about today, and kind of ties in with Apogee Graphics, and as you know, it's a passion of mine and was a hobby of mine before being a business. Kind of transitioned to that with a lot of people pushing me and encouraging me to make that a business because they enjoyed the products that we were making. Kind of got me thinking, and I had, you kind of hear people say sometimes not to make your hobby, your business. It takes the fun away from it, or and you lose that fun due to maybe because now you have customers to please, and you're not just doing it for the fun of it.
And it's funny, the other way they'll say, get a job doing something you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
But they don't want to say that about starting your own business.
Exactly. So, I'm kind of torn on it. And the more we talked about it a little bit this week, and I really haven't been able to distinguish one way or another. I know when we talked about it, I told you, man, I don't know. Maybe by the time we sit down and record that I would have an answer, but I still don't think I do. Of what, if I agree with that or I don't agree with that.
My thinking is always, don't listen to everything you hear, or obviously listen to everything you hear, but don't just take the advice just because you heard it from somebody who claims to be an expert or who may be very successful in the field. There's, you take financial advice, for example. There's people like Dave Ramsey saying you don't need credit cards, you don't need to do anything with that, which, there's pros and cons to it. And then there's other financial guys say, I don't even have a debit card, I only have credit cards.
Capitals,
It all depends what kind of person you are, and it's not a one size fits all. I tend to disagree with it more. I don't think you can say don't go into this field or start this business because it's your passion. Of course, you're going to be working hard, but my thinking is there's so much that goes into running a business, and if you're the type of person that has business after business and you know the grind, and that's just your life, okay, great. But there's a lot of people listening right now that they're wondering if they should start a business. They're trying to get their foot in the water, just get their foot wet and figure out if it's worth it. And if you're doing something that's not your passion, you may not stick with the grind. And that's
sometimes is the easiest thing for them to start is something that is their hobby or something they've already have a little investment in, or they have a little bit of knowledge in and they enjoy doing it. It is easier, and for me that was the case, is it is easier to take a little further than a hobby. Maybe not a full-blown business, but getting paid for doing a little bit of the hobbyist work you enjoy doing. It is easy to make that transition early on. But what really got me thinking about this is because we spent nearly the past 2 years telling people, hey, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you love, go out. And then I heard on another podcast this topic came up, and I started thinking about it, prior to us talking about it, and it just really got me thinking, man, were we giving people the right information?
Well, I like to say I've said it before, I like to say there's two kinds of entrepreneurs. people who are just born to run businesses. Gary Vee's an example. He talks about going to yard sales and buying stuff and trying to flip them, or going to maybe not flea markets, but something like that with knowing how much a baseball card or whatever is worth.
Yeah.
And knowing what he can buy and sell it for, before the days of internet. He's going to run businesses no matter what they are. He can turn anything into a business. People like Mark Cuban. And then there's other people who become entrepreneurs because they're good at something, but because they have a passion of doing it. And sometimes that's how they get into running businesses. But the examples that are used on why you shouldn't start a business that's your passion is, well, you're going to have difficult customers and they're going to ruin it for you.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have difficult customers regardless.
Yeah.
And if you're doing something that's not really your passion, a lot of times you'll just say, screw this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just like having a job and saying, screw this, and we go get a new job. It's something that you'll probably have a lot of debt.
Yeah.
You have a lot invested in this, and you can't just say, sorry, screw this, it's not for me. And that's why, if you're the type of entrepreneur, like, yeah, I can just do this one thing because I'm good at it, great. And it can turn into a situation where you learn the ins and outs of the business of being an entrepreneur, and you can turn into other things later. And then that passion could really just turn into a passion. You grow that business where you're not even working it. You have other people doing it for you. And you're on other things.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, the way I can see and the way I've kind of been digesting this topic this week is my business, for example, a print business. A lot of people do it in their homes. I mean, like we talked about earlier in the year, I set up designs that we're selling products, selling designs to these home, businesses or people at home that with Cricuts and Silhouettes and other, machines that can make things. We started catering to those. Well, that's kind of the way that, it's presented sometimes is, okay, well, I charge for a service, but someone at home that does this as a hobby will do it for free. So now I'm competing against people that are doing a hobbyist, business for free. And I can see both sides of that, and that does create a lot of competition. Now, I feel like I've found a way to capitalize that where, yeah, that's fine. You do it for free. But when you need the designs, you're going to buy the designs for me now.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to make my money. I'm still going to get that customer, but I'm going to get it through you, I'm not going to have direct.
Yeah. And man, I'd like to have a conversation with the person, because I listen to the podcast too, and they did bring that up as an example. And for you, it's going to stick you because that is what you do. But that's why something, if you follow politics a lot, when somebody comes up with the perfect example to prove your point, it's not an exception. It's not an exception.
This is one example that,
it's an exception that
hits me
proves the
because
rule.
That is a scenario, but how many businesses is that? Not the scenario that can't work.
I like to say it's the exception that proves the rule, not the exception to the rule. In a lot of cases, that just happens to be, if that happens to be what your passion is, sure. But what if your passion is something that not everybody can do?
Yeah.
But going back to printing, sure, let them do it. Your customer base, I mean, you'll do little stuff for people but your customer base that's going to make you successful isn't the people that want one or two things done.
Yeah.
You want it on a bigger scale. And you can let them have that little piddly crap, do things for friends and family. And I know you started out with your business doing a lot more than you do now because you realize it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
But you'll still kind of mess around a little bit with some stuff for the right people, the right organizations.
Yeah.
But in general, yeah, sure. Make a hat or a shirt or a graphic.
And at one time, we were that person. We were that person that would do it for free or cheap or undercut
and you don't do it anymore.
The big guys. We don't do that. We're at their level or sometimes more expensive. I'll tell, hey, go to those guys because it's not worth it for me anymore.
Yeah, and I don't want anybody listening who does that, for free. And maybe you're listening because you're trying to figure out how to turn that into a business. We're not trying to belittle you. That's great if you want to do that.
Not at all.
But you see that meme, that example on social media where it's they say I found somebody to do it cheaper, and and it shows this is the cheaper, or it's okay, we'll pay between this much and this much. You're like, okay, the higher end is like it's a picture of a horse. It's like a really extravagant, great picture of a horse, and then the last end looks like a 4-year-old drew it.
Yeah.
It's like this is the high end, this is the low end.
Yeah.
So that's what you get. And if somebody, unfortunately, if you have a customer that'll work great for you and they want to get it for free, and somebody can do the level they want for free, all power to them. Mm-hmm. Like you say, you don't look at that as competition. I mean, obviously not the people doing it free wouldn't be competition anyways, but you just, you look at it as there's enough to go around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And having that as a passion and being, I had the business and we shut it down, and then I ended up coming back to the business because it continued to become was a hobby of mine. So that is a positive sense to it, is I always had that there, and this rendition of the company as Apogee it's much different. I don't know if you can compare one better than the other one. It's a lot different than it was before. Different products, different things. We didn't do this kind of stuff, the hats and shirts and hoodies and selling those products or doing giveaways with our own branded products in previous companies. But it is different, but it still brought us back to running a business based on a hobby and a passion that we had.
Yeah, and going back to, I don't even, they give you that example of why you shouldn't, because of people doing it for free, but that's not really an answer to it being your passion, because, so you're saying if doing this is your passion, you should just continue to do it for free for people?
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to understand without a lot more examples, but I guess if you just, in your mind, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to start a business, I don't care. There's going to be market research involved. I mean, your number one determiner if you're going to start a certain business is it your passion or not?
Well, what's better market research than having a hobby that you're just test fitting all these products all the time?
I mean, that works because you skip a lot of, not even skip, you can move past a lot of steps you've already completed when it's your hobby, because you already have knowledge of the industry. You've probably done some market research. You understand the customer base. You understand the competition.
And there's a lot that can be learned and given. I mean, obviously when you're doing things for free or super cheap for people, they tend not to complain, right? I mean, but it's a way for you to build your business without having to deal with a lot of disgruntled customers, especially in a startup. Because in a startup, things go wrong. There's mistakes made. You don't want to start off on your first order having mistakes and having to deal with a customer. So when you're doing it as a hobby and you can do it at a low cost or no cost to someone, they tend to be a little more happy, and then you start to gain that following. You have friends and stuff that are going to help build that business. Not that that's the only way or you have to do it that way, but a lot of entrepreneurs or solopreneurs tend to start that way, where they're going to give discounts or do it a little bit cheaper for people they know, just to help build and get the business off the ground.
Yeah, you have to get started somewhere. You have to get your foot in the door and learn the business. And like we said earlier, there's no better way than if it was already your passion. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I understand the flaws coming with that. If you're concerned about having angry customers kind of ruining it for you, then you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur anyways. I mean, you have to learn to manage accounts, and manage the customers and their expectations, and not just that, just problem solve for them. Because when you have customers, there's a lot more goes into it, because you need to manage them and their time. Mm-hmm. And it's not that, okay, here's my schedule, this is what we can do. You have to look at their schedule too, because they have, especially when it's like B&B sales, you're not just doing it to a person buying a banner, a company or organization. They need it by a certain time. They have appointments and certain times. They can talk with you about it. It's not all, sometimes it's, hey, you have between 9 and 5 to talk to these people and figure it out and set meetings. You work 24 hours a day as an entrepreneur, but you can't expect them to work at their schedule, especially when
Yeah.
it's a side deal or whatever. You have a full-time job on top of that.
Yeah, no, there is some juggling that has to go in with that, but when you're trying, and I think if there was a piece of advice in that, and I didn't really follow it at the beginning of running my business when I did, when you have a full-time job and you have that as a side, is I tried to mask it too much and tried to like cater to them as, hey, this is my full-time, like these are the hours, I can be available these normal working hours.
Yeah.
Instead of just telling them sometimes, hey, you know what, I'm going to be busy here. Here's when I'm available to talk or go over this, or, nights and weekends is my time that I can spend on this for you. But, I think it's important to be upfront with your customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was, and not because I did, and I know a lot of people do. You try to hide it and mask that this isn't your full, that this is your one and only job.
Seems less legitimate. I mean,
yeah, it does, and sometimes it does. And I think that's what we've talked about for the past 18 to 20 months or something. Of COVID really helped with that because everything is less legitimate. Like, being with meetings or the Zoom calls now, podcasts. I mean, everything is so changed that everything's on the same plane now.
Yeah, I was skeptical about calling this a podcast because although podcasts have been around for a while, but it was kind of like maybe not quite an asterisk next to it, but it was kind of looked down upon like online radio or something. But now everybody has podcasts.
Yeah. Podcasts are probably more prevalent in the industry now, in the audio industry, than even radio.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to podcasts or stream music more than I do listening to over-the-air radio or talk shows.
Yeah, I definitely don't listen to music on the radio. I'll listen to some talk radio, but I use Spotify or YouTube Music for podcasts and music. But going back to talking about it, it's not a big deal, it being your side deal or whatever. I mean, we have a lady we buy tamales for around Christmas, and we meet her at the HEB parking lot at like 6 or 7 o'clock, when we meet up, and we don't even think about it. Like, I mean, not that we're expecting it to be a full-on business where they make tamales out of a brick and mortar location, but it's stuff that people don't even think about it. Now, if you're I was gonna say if you're a lawyer or something like that, but I even know people are all mobile, and
exactly.
I was thinking
I don't
being
know
a psychiatrist, you can get therapy online now.
I mean, even we've talked about the doctor we use now is a direct primary care physician, and they can do house calls. They do over the phone stuff. They have a small office, but they're not like your typical doctor, so it's different. It's more like the old school.
No, I heard a story about one of those. Their doctor, he was convinced his doctor was laying in bed when he gave us, like, he had his white coat and everything on, but he's like, I think he's laying in bed because there was a picture behind him that was about the width of a bed. It's like, that's what you put at the top of the head of your bed. And he didn't look like he was sitting right. He was kind of like laying down, and it's like, you can be a doctor and not even get out of bed. Like, how many of them are really wearing pants?
Yeah.
It's like, if I don't go into work, if I'm working from home, I may put a polo on and wear shorts or something.
Yeah.
It's like, this is all they're going to see me if I'm not going in front of a customer or into the office.
Yeah.
That's what people do.
Yeah, a lot of days I get up and run in the mornings. A lot of days I come in and I just go straight into the office and start working with my, athletic shorts and t-shirt and, Crocs or tennis shoes, whatever. Some days I just kick my shoes off, and it's a lot different.
Yeah, it's the days of trying to be a legitimate business. I mean, I know even talking with vendors, not only customers, vendors, you're trying to convince them, oh yeah, we're a big business, got one location or something like that. And it's just the situations where you're focusing too much on, I guess, the vanity of it.
Yeah.
Working with social media, which is a good part of it, and marketing, but you're worrying about different parts. And that's where I guess passion can kind of get in the way, because you have the vision of what you want your business. It's your baby. I want to make sure that this is how we're thought of on social media or in public in general.
Well, I mean, and some of that comes from the history of business and kind of most of our upbringing seeing a business, right? Of what a business should look like or what we should expect out of a business. And I mean, really the past almost 2 years has changed that view. I mean, it was probably trending in the direction we're going now, but probably over a 10-year span, it would get to where it is now, where COVID really pushed it into just a few months. Businesses just instantly changed, and even for us, we were unsure about how it would be, and that's kind of when we jumped on the podcast really fast. Starting this because we wanted to see like where is this going to take businesses? Where is business going to go through this huge transition so fast? And really, I mean, besides like now like labor shortages and there's some material issues that a lot of industries are dealing with, for the most part, businesses have done really well with it.
Yeah. Obviously, there were some casualties with some small businesses. They're just going out of business and weren't able to come back, but the demand is there.
But like I said, like they were probably on a 5 to 10 year slide anyways. Yeah. Regardless of they were the ones. I mean, if you were a good, legitimate, strong business that was set up to succeed, you were going to survive this.
Yeah, even a local restaurant here, they moved into a different location. They posted on Facebook, just being honest, saying this year they barely made it.
Mm-hmm. And now they upgraded to a better restaurant.
You don't think about location. That like as bad as things. You just make it look like everything's great.
Yeah.
And you don't want customers to think, especially in a restaurant, that they may not be there or we may not be here soon.
It's hard to support.
Yeah, afterwards. It's...
I mean, really, with a lot of the changes, I mean, Apogee Graphics, we haven't had as good of a year as we've had in previous years. It's been not 2020 as much as 2021, just kind of things settling back has been a little bit slower of a year, and that was good for us, though, for us to be able to expand and do other things like the clothing line and some of the branding that we're doing. That's actually been good for the business.
Yeah, that's part of it is adapting, and we've done a whole show on how to navigate those waters and looking for opportunities when you're just thinking, man, this is gonna suck. We're gonna have to carry less because we can't get the inventory in, or it's just really expensive, and you're just looking for different ways to profit off of it. Mm-hmm. What can you do? If you can't do this, you can do
what can you do to cater to your customers now and the needs that they have now? And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from all of this is what can you do to cater to those customers? What do your customers need? Maybe that's the question we should be asking is what do you need? What do you need me to provide to you? What makes your life easier?
Yeah, working in sales, that's a lot of guys would say things like this isn't my job or this and that, but sometimes we'll have things set up where customers can order it themselves. It's pretty automated, but sometimes you get customers, whether it's age or whatever, they're just not technologically savvy. There's all different factors, and always around a computer. They're out in the field that they call in an order to me, I place it for them. Yeah. Or sometimes I deliver it to them because they need it today or tomorrow and they can't wait a few days. So if it's small enough for me to deliver, I take it out there. And it's a situation where you can have the attitude that that's not my job. And when you're an entrepreneur, everything's your job. Yeah. Whether you outsource it or hire people to do it, those people don't show up for work. You can't say it's not my job. It's all inclusive, and it works the same way with sales. When you have an account, you have to look at it as your account. Of course, it's the company's account. Everybody wants to service it, but it's your account. Yeah. If it doesn't get taken care of, you can lose the account. The success of it. Whether it's your fault or not, trust me, there's lots of times I've been chewed out or we've lost accounts from the customer chewing me out, and it really wasn't my fault. I can't say my company screwed up. They didn't do this, which it may be true. Yeah. But sorry, you have to manage people. Yeah. And that works the same with an entrepreneur. If you're jumping into being an entrepreneur, depending on what your background is, there's lots of stuff that you have to do that if you talk to a good person about advice, or you find the right YouTube video or article, they'll tell you about that. Not just, you have to learn how to manage people because you're going to hire employees, but you have to manage your customers. And you can say all you want, like, oh, I'm not going to put up with that. Okay, but you're trying to make your business survive. It's your problem regardless, whether you have to kiss ass and apologize or
kind of like when you're
have the account.
When you're in sales, it's very similar to entrepreneurship. You know, you have to run your accounts like they're your business.
Because you're dealing with vendors and customers directly.
Yeah. You know, when you mentioned about, as an entrepreneur having it, doing that full time, and that turns into a 24-hour job, it makes me think of there's like a TikTok video that goes around, and it shows people like doing whatever. Like it's a guy laying floor, he's putting in flooring, and he's like, yeah, I quit my 9 to 5. I started my own business, so I quit my 9 to 5 so I could work 24 hours a day now, 7 days a week.
To make it sound like more freedom.
Yeah. You quit your job to gain more freedom, but you actually gained more work.
Yeah.
Even though it is different. I mean, it is a lot different. I mean, you may only work a couple hours here and a couple hours here and a couple hours late at night, and you just have to make yourself available.
Yeah, you're not off from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. the next day and off on weekends.
And not successful if you do that.
No.
You can set whatever hours you want, but
it's
what's
flexible.
Your success?
Very flexible. You just whatever hours you have available. It's almost like looking at vacation days. You have hours you can use.
Which is funny. I tend to think like through the evening, like early evening time, 5, 6, 7, like as far as like physical production work of printing and putting things together, I tend to get the most done during that time. Like it seems more efficient for me. And then doing like design work or any computer type work, really for me seems to be like the really late night stuff always seems to be better for me.
Some experts will tell you that's wrong. But we don't claim to be experts here.
No.
We just talk until somebody tells us to stop, but luckily y'all can't tell us to stop.
We don't have a producer here to tell us to stop.
We did one episode and that didn't work out well.
Yeah, that's true.
But
we ended up with way too many inappropriate drops.
Yeah, and we couldn't. Oh man, I know the drop you're talking about.
Our producer actually is in London, right?
According to his Instagram, yes. I knew he was going to England. I didn't know
UK.
Yeah, it's a whole other thing. So he's probably asleep right now.
So that
I
can't keep up with the time difference.
According to, I just go by when the NFL plays there at 9. It's probably like 6 there. I know they're not too far ahead of us. Maybe by 6 or 7 hours. I do know how far Australia is ahead of us. When we interviewed Gary.
Oh yeah.
I was waiting for you to say his last name. I can't.
Jarjura? Yeah.
Are you guessing that's it?
No, that's it. Jarjura. Yeah.
Yeah,
because you said it the first time, and he's like, "Yeah, you're right."
And then
right.
after that, I was never able to say it again.
There was such a relief that you.
He's supposed to teach me all about cricket.
Oh, really?
I was messaging him, and because here in Dallas, we're getting a cricket team and a rugby team. I was like, I can watch rugby. I kind of understand for the most part.
Yeah.
Cricket, I'm like, I have no.
I can
clue.
remember like as a kid, late nights you watch like rugby would be on like ESPN 2 or something late at night, and like I guess Australian time, like the whenever it's daytime for them, and I can always remember watching that, and that was always because it's so similar to football.
Yeah. The key thing, all you just have to remember is, and you don't really think about it until somebody tells you, is you're not allowed to hit anybody if they don't have the ball. I mean, you can block, but that's the difference. That's why they don't wear pads or helmets. It's actually not near as dangerous when you're not blindside hitting or just hitting in general. You're just kind of blocking and pushing. But if you can't tackle and hit somebody if they don't have the ball, which makes a lot of sense. Then you're
they're just much tougher than football players are.
That too, because that's kind of what football was. And then people are like, "This is boring. You need to be able to throw the ball." And but cricket, I told him I had no clue, and he's sitting here trying to schedule times. Hey, can we talk this evening or whenever? I'll give you the rundown. And I said, slow down. I'll find time, and you can explain it to me so I can legitimately follow.
Maybe you need to have on your other podcast the sports page.
Yeah. Could have
We need to have
there.
him on there and talk cricket and maybe let him explain to everyone.
Maybe he can explain to me first, and then we'll see how cricket is received here.
I mean, to me, it's kind of like baseball. Similar, right?
The field's called the pitch, right? I mean, I know that's in soccer as well, but
I don't know.
I'm not getting my sports mixed up. I understand that. Maybe I just don't know. I don't know a lot about soccer. I got to a season and a half of broadcast, being a color commentator for broadcasting minor league soccer. So maybe that's just what I need. I need to call the Dragons. No, the Dragons is a rugby team.
You need to be the color commentator.
It shouldn't be that hard, right? You think I could? It's not minor league though. It's professional. I know anybody aspiring to be in sports broadcasting or media, just call your closest minor league baseball team. They'll give you all access to it, unless they're maybe affiliated with Major League Baseball teams. But you can find an independent one. They'll give you whatever kind of access you want. I want to see if I can get that with a cricket team. Should be like be an intern or something.
You and Chris need to get that for Railroaders and get all access where you guys can cover.
I have they have a new management, so I would see if the same guy is still there. But yeah, that's not overly difficult. That's how I was able to get us all tickets to the Fort Worth Cats to their championship series. Yeah. Like all 7 games, I was able
we used to go all the time on your press passes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Fort Worth Cats are no longer. They were supposed to renovate that stadium, but it's the previous owners let it go, so it's like $10 million just to it's nearly as much as the stadium costs just to fix it up and bring it back to where it was.
And it seems like it would be good business, especially in that area.
Just for the history of it all, I don't know. They were, what I was told, they managed badly because I went to Game 7 of the championship, the whole league championship series,
which was the same management that came and started with the Railroaders originally.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah.
Not what he told me, but yeah, somewhat. I say yeah, it's different, but no,
they're not going to admit
Texas
that
Rangers,
they mismanaged.
the Texas Rangers owners own them now. So, speaking of entrepreneurship, hopefully that works out well with the Railroaders here locally in the Dallas
Talking about
area.
like commemorating all these old memories and things. Something else you and I talked about this week was kind of like how people, how would you put it, like how it's perceived with your success in business, like if things are just given to you or if you actually have to work for them.
It depends what your definition of given to you was. I mean, talk about Donald Trump in a business sense, no political sense at all. Yeah, his father gave him like $1 million. I think it was a loan, but in general, his father gave him $1 million, and he was able to start from there. And his children have been successful in
which
in
say
many
you
ventures.
could say that would be like the equivalent of me giving my kid $1,000 to start a business or something, or a couple $1,000s to start a business.
Somewhat. I mean, I know when Mark Cuban gets fined, we like to say, well, that's like me getting fined $100 or $1,000. It was like, well, not really, because $1,000 for me is kind of a big. If I get a speeding ticket, that's significant. It's not going to bankrupt me, but I'm like, damn it. But Mark Cuban get fined $10,000, and maybe percentage wise, it's an equivalent, but he's doesn't have student loans to pay. And if he did, it wouldn't matter. He'd just pay it off.
Yeah.
So yes and no, but if you got $1 million to work with, who's to say you could do any better than Donald Trump? It's easy to say, or just any millionaire, billionaire in general. It's easy to say, oh, they didn't start from nothing. Shaq's recently said that. Talk about his kids.
Yeah, he's not
rich.
Give them
They're
anything.
not rich.
Yeah. They're gonna have to.
But that's not absolutely true because they're famous. They have their he gave them a lot of advice too. He can tell them what to do, what not to do, and
I think that's probably even more so. And maybe that's how this all works out. Is that is what knowledge were you given?
I like to compare it to resilience. It doesn't matter what you're given or not given. It's what you can make it through. I guess I can use Larry Bird for example. I don't think it's apples and oranges, but because he's kind of self-made with his basketball career. But does he own the Pacers or is he the GM of the Pacers? I think he's
a GM.
The GM.
I think so.
But you could say, well, he wouldn't be a GM if he wasn't a basketball player, or Michael Jordan. He wouldn't be an owner if he wouldn't be a basketball player and made his way through. Yeah. Regardless, he still was. He still had to become a basketball player and work his way up.
But he also
had to build Air Jordan into that.
Build that. He made Nike. I mean, he was.
If you're legitimately,
if he doesn't make Nike what they are today, then you don't have Air Jordan for him not making Nike, putting them on the map for him to be able to have his own branded.
Which is funny. It's completely different too, because I think it's funny. You watch NFL uniforms with the Air Jordan logo on it. I'm like, that's weird looking at a basketball logo on it, but
he's transcended not just basketball; it's sports in general.
Yes,
I mean, you have you mentioned that Dak Prescott. He's a Air Jordan athlete, so he's sponsored by Air Jordan. He wears Air Jordan cleats in games. I mean, that's how that is truly transcended.
And being successful. I have to word this the right way. We get a lot of haters, a lot of hate mail. Being successful isn't hard or isn't difficult. It's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. You have to work hard. You have to do the work and fight through and be resilient and fight through all the shortcomings and the failures and the hardships. You have to get through all of that.
Yeah.
But it's just doing the work. Outside of obviously like being a doctor or something that's difficult. I'm not saying you just do the work and you can be a doctor. No. But overall being successful, we talked about us not having degrees and, we at our full-time jobs make more than the average person with that, significantly more. Mm-hmm. And I'm told this and that throughout my life. Like, hey, I was just told the other day, I was making a sales call or a sales visit. And the guy was like, man, you're 10 years too late. I'm kind of just doing this now. But you don't see people hustle that much. Like, he's, making me feel great. I'm like, man, I'm going to go, do some more sales calls. This is, something you usually dread. I'm like, I'm not, this is my job. This is what I'm doing. But when whether it's your parents rubbing off on you, if it's the way you're brought up or it's just the way you do things, it's like, just do the work.
Yeah.
Just fight through it. Don't fall victim to your things, because I promise you, Donald Trump, Mark Cuban, whoever you want to talk about, they have adversity and they made it through there. Would Apogee graphics be 10 times better or a million times better if you had $1 million to start with? Maybe not. Maybe. Depends. If you get $1 million right now, sure, because you have all the knowledge.
But previous to working,
when you first started your first venture in graphics at 19 years old, whatever age you were, would it, how come over half of the people who win the lottery end up bankrupt? They don't end up being successful, and they end up filing for bankruptcy.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily that. I mean, when you have, it's funny when LeBron James kid says, "I don't want to wear number 23 because people are going to know." I don't want people to know I'm LeBron's kid. Cool, your name's LeBron James Jr. But he's going to fight through adversity. Maybe he gets a step up from Landon playing baseball, because if LeBron James Jr. has any lick of talent, he's going to be discovered.
He's going to get an extra look.
He's going to get an extra look that some other people won't. Mm-hmm. But again, like you said earlier,
it's about the information that's given to him, right? It's not just it being handed to him. It's he has a dad that plays professional basketball that can give him insight that the average person can't give him.
And that's what's going to, and that, for better or worse, is going to not define him, but is going to affect him.
But it's not 100% predetermined that he's going to be successful and make it to the NBA because his dad is who he is.
He probably has the best shot of doing it in his life for his own self. Like, put LeBron James in any other profession of the world. The best chance LeBron James Jr. has of being a professional basketball player, he's living it. That's his best chance for his life. But, the old scenario where you have two brothers, one's an alcoholic and one doesn't drink at all. And you ask either one of them, why are you an alcoholic or why don't you drink? And they'll both have the same answers, because my dad was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
It's how they fought through that. Now, obviously, I'm not...
It was about the perspective that each of them took from that situation.
Yeah, and one knows, okay, whether or not it's... I probably have an addictive tendency if my father has, or if he just says, I can't stand being around alcohol because I just have bad memories of it.
Yeah.
It can be either way. And we're not trying to offend anybody if you're watching on YouTube, where we do drink alcohol on this show, but that was, just a general example that people take, you can use it in any scenario. Politics. Why are you a Republican or why are you a Democrat? Well, because my father was a Republican. They'll two different kids, they'll either go exactly like their parents are or the exact opposite.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, not necessarily a bad parent or a good parent. But resiliency, it's the roadmap.
Well, and it's how hard are you willing to work? Good friend of the show, and a good personal friend of ours, Anthony, he built all of his businesses and everything he's done from the ground up, from scratch, from his hard work. Nothing was given to him. Nobody set him up for success. It was just, he went out and he hustled his way to the top. That's... So, for anybody, I hear a lot of people, actually, I think that you made a post on Instagram this week and somebody commented, no, that's not true. I hate people that say that anybody, you're better off if you come from nothing because you're resilient. And somebody, I forget exactly what the exact quote was, but
and that's not what it was. It was the Gary Vee video, and it wasn't what he was saying. It's saying he has just the same. Would you rather have $1 million or would you rather go through all this adversity? And obviously you'd want, but if you don't go through that adversity, you're going to blow it.
You wouldn't even know what to do with $1 million. Like you asked me. At 19 years old, if somebody gave me $1 million to go and run this business, I would have never started the business.
Exactly.
I would have went and blown $1 million and had a good time.
And it's hard.
And I wouldn't have known. Now you give me $1 million today to do that, I build this into a multi-million-dollar empire, and I franchise it, and everything it grows. But it's all about what I've learned from 19 to now. In 2 weeks I'll be 36, and in that time that I have put in to learn, I've put that in and I've learned, and now I would know what to do with that.
And we're talking the business side of it. I mean, nothing about fairness or inequality. We're just talking strictly the business side, because the one who commented, I think, said something about put Gary Vee over in Africa and let him tell them that, which completely different. We're not even talking the same. We're not even having the same conversation here, but. Would Donald Trump have become president if his father didn't build, a $1 million empire for him to kick off, and for him to turn that to $1 billion empire? It's hard to say, but it's not comparing it. It's if I would have been in the exact same situation that Donald Trump was in, would I have been able to build that? It's not saying, he had it easy for this. That's why I want to use the word, it's not difficult to be successful.
No.
I'm not saying it's easy. It's simple.
It's not impossible.
Look at exactly. It's going to be hard work, and I'm not saying if you want to become the president or a doctor, an astronaut, simple, just do it. No, just to be successful in general, you can avoid poverty. You can avoid being an alcoholic. And again, I'm not saying it's easy not to get addicted to alcohol, but in general, every movie, every book. That's all it's about is resiliency. It's about the underdog. That makes the best movies. Every true story you ever hear about, it's about somebody overcoming something. It's a blueprint. You just have to do the work.
It's either you're going to overcome it or you're going to let it define you.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's not a situation where we all go through the same stuff. I like to think we were pretty sheltered in our upbringing when you compare it to other people, and not so sheltered when it's just you can't compare it because we didn't have abusive parents. We didn't, we weren't severely bullied we didn't have a lot of hardships. And looking back, you're like, well, life's not easy, but there's no shortage. I'm not going to make myself a victim because if I want to feel bad about myself, I can go on TV or internet and find a reason to feel better about myself. If you're into comparing yourself, which the only person you should compare yourself is who you were yesterday. Like, I'll say that all the time. But if you want to think your life is bad, you can always find somebody who has a worse life, especially if you live in America.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. But talking about that kind of makes me think of like a lot of our sponsors, and we don't always get an opportunity, especially when we get busy, and to talk enough about them. But, one, we talked about, Anthony with Hawks Event Rental Services. Hell of a company. He's built this thing into what's starting to become a rental empire. I actually have a rental coming this weekend from him. So, he's one we think about a lot. And we compare a lot of things too, because a lot of what we talk about, he's the type of entrepreneur that we are trying to cater to. You also have Sense in the City. They're doing great things. I saw this week they've got other items like tumblers, cups that they're making custom colored, and they've added some other products. And lastly, Zapata. He's still repairing iPads and iPhones and all devices, and expanding to unlocking your phone to any carrier. And those are three businesses that are the epitome of what we are trying to do, and what we are trying to encourage everyone to do, is to chase your passion and do what makes you happy. And
exactly. We bring them up so often because they're exactly the inspiration, and it goes both ways from what we hear. But we're inspired to do certain shows because we see the path they go on, and what where Anthony was when we first started this to where he is now. Zapata the same way. I see him posting all the time. Hey, we do this now. Hey, we do this now. We have the capability of doing this. And Sense in the City, coincidentally, starting right around the same time that we started.
It still
this podcast
amazes me what they've been able to do.
And there's been situations where what their businesses are their side gigs. There's situations where it's been their full time. Apogee Graphics is the same way, and everything we talk about. I don't think we've had a show on here where one of the topics or episodes could have been a transition for them, or talked exactly
been inspired by.
And a lot of times we like to give equal treatment to our sponsors. So there are some episodes that were based on their successes or failures or transitions, and we just didn't want to talk about them the entire episode because then we feel obligated to do that with other sponsors. But a lot of times, if you follow any of these businesses on social media, you could probably correlate what they were talking about one week to one of our episodes, or vice versa. Something they did based on what we talked about before. And we definitely hear from those people, hear your experiences too. If we have other small businesses
that
listening,
we've inspired you, or
just if you're listening in general, to know that you're there. We could kind of format shows around topics, and we'll definitely give you a shout out too.
And we've had a lot of people that have reached out to us with show ideas and things they would like us to dig into and hear our perspective on. So that as well, let us know if there's something.
Life's busy, especially when you're an entrepreneur. It's hard when you have something in your mind. I'm going to go Google that later, look that up, but you're just busy. If you're going to listen to us anyways, let us do the work for you. To do the research for you, and we can build an episode just for you.
Until next time,
I'm Ashton.
And I'm Tony. Thank you again for supporting the Business and Beyond podcast.
Be sure to hit the subscribe button to be alerted every time we post a new episode.